get this thing started. My goodness. I hope you're doing well out there, wherever you are. Let me just get myself situated. Got a bunch of dictionaries and notes that I wanted to jot down. And we gotta get the mood right. Gotta set the tone for today. Yeah, we going to that holy breath. We going to that holy breath, man. Well, after this commercial. Here we go. We're gonna get started in just a second. Peace, 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 peace. Coming back from Atlantis, come on. You see, I was born on earth, but I'm not from here. I am for the stars. One time for my man, my son, he made this video board for me. What's up, Cam? I was born on earth, but I'm not from here. I am for the stars. I'm not talking boulevard. I am from the sky. We was one with our creator, and then we fell. Oh my God, oh my God. Oh yes, we fell. Oh yes, we fell. Listen up. And all is mine, all is mine, all is mine. All is mine. We can make our heaven, you know why? You know why? We made our hell. We made our Just look around. Hey, can't you tell? Okay, be careful what you think, and be careful how you move, and be careful what you say. You know why? These words are spells. They casting spells. But listen well. You see, we are not the body, and we are not the flesh. This life and the death, and this thing right here is just a test to reconnect the holy breath. Okay, I said I was born on earth, but I'm not from here. Yeah, I am from the stars, I'm not talking boulevard. Oh no. I keep telling you I'm not from here. You see, I was born on earth, but I'm not from here. Yeah, I am from the stars, I'm not talking boulevard. Oh no. See, I am from the sky, the sun of Most High. The sun of Most High. Oh my God. Praise Allah. Yeah. All right. Peace, 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 peace. I'm Rami Salam El. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. This class is going to be on the Divine Constitution and Bylaws for the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Moorish Science Temple of America was founded by Noble Drew Ali, a divine prophet, universal prophet, came for everybody, came for all of humanity, but came specifically for so-called black people, so-called Negroes, so-called African Americans, so-called people of color, so-called Ethiopians. We're gonna get to that in a second. Just because we needed a prophet real bad. And I wanted to get into this and just understanding the divine constitution and the bylaws just a little bit more, because it's very important that we understand our laws. You know what I mean? It's important that we understand the Constitution for the United States of America. It's important that we know the rights of indigenous people. The Declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's important that we know international rights, human rights, etc. But it's really important that we know our divine rights. You know what I mean? And so let me just read through the Divine Constitution and Bylaws first, and then I'll go back and highlight a couple of points here and there. And I dropped a link in the chat. But you can also find it if you just put in Divine Constitution and Bylaws, Moorish Science Temple of America into the search engine. It'll pull up. You can go to hermetic.com/Moorish/Constitution. Hermetic.com. That's HERMETIC.com/Moorish/Constitution. And it'll bring it up for you. So let me read it real quick. The Divine Constitution and Bylaws for the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you're part and parcel, or partial, of the government, and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, and that they may know that they are part and partial of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become part and partial of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey fathers and mothers and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet Noble Drew Ali through the guidance of his Father God Allah. So that, in short, and then it has the Moorish American prayer at the bottom here. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and day through his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Amen. That is the Divine Constitution. Let me pull this up also. Let me drop this in here. Peace, peace, peace from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico! I wanted to highlight something. I actually meant to say it before I started, but it's cool. I want to get the purpose here. One moment. Yeah, almost found it. There it goes. No, that's not it. I want to get the purpose. Economic, that's what it is. There it is right there. And this is, it's titled The Moorish Science Temple of America. My fault. So I dropped a link in the chat there to the Moorish literature. This is a collection of writings from during the time Noble Drew Ali was alive, from the Moorish Guide, etc. And one of them is titled The Moorish Science Temple of America. Actually, before I even get into that, and before I go any further, if you're listening to this or you listen to the Divine Constitution and you're hearing the Moorish Science Temple of America, Allah, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, I just ask that you listen or that you continue listening with an open mind. And if you have preconceived ideas and notions or prejudices about the Moorish Science Temple of America or Moors or Moorish Americans or Noble Drew Ali, we just put them aside just for a second and really just take in the information. In this Moorish literature, I wanted to highlight to explain what the Moorish Science Temple of America is about. Because a lot of people you may hear say, oh, the Moorish Science Temple of America is just a 501c. It's a religious corporation, or it's just some religious thing. It's just like church, but it's just for Islam, and that's incorrect. And let me explain why. This is writing. It says the Moorish Science Temple of America was founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Aside from the fact that it is a legally organized religious corporation, it is building on human needs. To this desirable end, in time, legitimate means will be found to dispense charity and provide for the mutual assistance of its members in times of distress, to aid in the improvement of health, and to encourage the ownership of better homes, to find employment for our members, and to teach those fundamental principles which are desired for our civilization, such as obedience to law, respect and loyalty to government, tolerance, and unity. So the Moorish Science Temple of America, just so you understand what it's about, it's building on human needs. It says, we are interested, further down, we are interested in freeing ourselves and our children from the greatest plight, economic slavery. We believe this can be best done by encouraging, patronizing, and establishing our own business enterprises and cultivating our own acres of land. And I'll just read this last little part here. We of the Moorish Science Temple of America, like countless other American citizens, know that we must live together here in America in harmony, friendship, and goodwill, whatever our race and creed may be. It is only from a purely religious standpoint, it seems at this time, that we differ from a large number of our fellow Americans. We believe in and foster the Muslim religion. We believe in the principles of its teachings insofar as they can be adopted to American life. We feel the Christian religion is all right for those who prefer it. In America, religious freedom is guaranteed to all under the Constitution. So just to put that on the record. But then I wanted to get into um, the actual divine constitution a little bit more. Um, let's start. I was going to start with number 1, but let's start with Acts 6. Acts 6, it says, the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. You know, this is for the Moorish Science Temple of America Divine Constitution, so it's talking about spiritual, religious, if you will. But that statement is a statement of historical evidence and information. The Moorish Americans, which is so-called black people, are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. That's the actual location. Moabites is a people, and you can confirm this by looking up, it's called the Moabite Stone, also known as the Mesha, Mesha, the Mesha Stone, or the Moabite Stone. And this was found in Jordan, in what we know as the Middle East, right next door to Jerusalem. And they, did the scientific research and carbon dating. I'm not exactly sure the technique, but they did the research and found that it came from 900 BC, and that it confirmed some of the things that are in the Bible as it relates to the Moabites. So I say that to say this is something that you can look up outside of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's not religious, and that's something that you have to believe. The Moabite Stone is in the Louvre Museum. It has an interesting history behind it, but I'm not trying to get into that. My point is that this isn't just some sort of belief system. This is really about who we are as a people. This is about law. This is about history and this divine constitution. So don't dismiss the Moorish Science Temple of America or the divine constitution or Noble Drew Ali's teachings as something that's purely religious or just purely something that those Moors believe, because it's deeper than that. I wanted to highlight the Ethiopian part, which is also part of Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel. I'm going to get to the part and partial in a second, of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now. And I wanted to, because when I was going over this right before class, I known, looking up and just studying, hearing people say Ethiopian, it comes from the Greeks meaning burnt face. So I'm like, okay, I can understand from that perspective why we shouldn't call ourselves Ethiopian. But I said, man, let me just look in the dictionary and see what Ethiopian means. And this is from the New Oxford American Dictionary. Ethiopian says a native or national of Ethiopia, a person of Ethiopian descent. Then right below it, archaic, a black person. Let me read that again just so you hear what I'm saying. Ethiopian, it says a native or national of Ethiopia or a person of Ethiopian descent. And then the line right below that part of the entry for the definition says archaic, meaning the old way, old form of it, a black person. So Ethiopian archaically meant a black person. And as we know, as Moorish Americans, we know that we're not blacks or Negroes or colors. So that just, if you were wondering why it says Ethiopian in there, is because at a time, at a point in time, Ethiopian meant black person. And we're not a black person or a colored or a Negro. We have to proclaim our free national name. And if you didn't know, our free national name is Moorish American. And by the way, I'll get to that as well. Oh, right here. Um, and then also I wanted to get real quickly um, to, while we're on Act 6, well, it's also part of Act 4 as well. But the whole issue of, does it say pardon partial, Partial, or pardon parcel, Parcel? If you're new, to this, okay, cool. If you're new to this, if you don't really understand what's going on, no problem. But some of the Moors that have been Moorish Americans that have been studying for this, or studying in this for a while, you may know about, this whole debate over pardon parcel versus pardon partial. And I got a law dictionary here because this is a constitution. So I said, well, let's look it up in law, see what we see. And partial says relating to a constituting a part, not complete, not entire or universal, not general or total. So if that's what we're going off of, it says in Act 4, all members must proclaim, all members must obey the holy laws of the government, must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and partial of the government. You are part, but not complete, not entirely or universally, not totally the government, and must live the life accordingly. I don't know if that quite makes sense. But let's go over to parcel, right? Parcel, the verb says to divide an estate. And then the noun, a small package or bundle, a part or portion of land, a part of an estate. It may be synonymous with lot. So, a part or portion of land. You are part and a portion of land of the government. You are part of the estate of the government. Not quite clear on that either. But when I was doing further research, and you look up the actual term part and partial, it doesn't even come up as part and partial. It comes up as part and parcel. And that phrase means an integral or essential piece, that which must be done or accepted as something else, as a part of something else. And then, Merriam-Webster, the definition of part and parcel, an essential or integral component. Now that definition, an essential or integral component, that makes sense. By being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government. You are an essential and integral component of the government and must live the life accordingly. So as it relates to the idea of it being part and parcel versus part and partial, based on the research and the evidence I've seen and looked up, it makes more logical sense to go with part and parcel, because that term actually is defined as an integral and an essential component of. And then when you plug in that definition to the other pieces here, Act 6, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, that they are an essential or integral component of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, blacks, or Ethiopians. And then here we go again. All members, Act 7, all members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel, become part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Must become an essential or integral component of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So based on that definition, it makes sense to me that it's part and parcel. If people have evidence to the contrary, that, from the Prophet Noble Ali's writings, that it actually says partial, then please provide that. But also realize, we have to realize that there were spelling errors. In this Quran that I have here, this is the reproduction of the original 1926 print, and there's some spelling, a few little spelling errors, and we can't think that we can't be that arrogant to think that there was no, spelling errors or any sort of error going on with our works. I wanted to highlight something else here. Act 1, getting into the kind of the law and the governance thing of the Constitution. Oh, man. Before I get to that, sorry, I didn't see the questions. Oh, man. Can a Moor answer this? What proof do we have that we are Moors? How best would you answer that question? Sorry, Patar, right knowledge. I apologize. I missed that question. As you may have heard me speak about the Moabite stone, our divine constitution, our teachings, it explains to us that Moors are the descendants of the Moabites. But specifically about Moors, I would simply say look in history. It spells it out throughout history. You could put all of Noble Drew Ali's, the Moor Science Temple of America, put all of those teachings aside and simply look into history. Look into Othello, uh, you know, span, South American history, Mordo. I mean, it's actually overwhelming in terms of the documentation and the evidence that shows that we're Moors. You know, yeah. That would be my best route. Is that I would say look into a dictionary, look up the word blackamoor, and then history. You know what I mean? Anything from the 700s to 1492. And then I would ask anyone that says that we're not Moors, after you look at the evidence, what are you unclear about? Because to me it's super clear. So maybe I'm not seeing what they're seeing. I would have to know from that point. Oh man, I'll go over the books. I'll go over the books at the end. Patal right now. I'll go over the books in the end. Let me make sure. Well, actually, no. Let me just run through it real quick for you. Where the rest of these things? Here. Oh man, I'm gonna get one more for you. 1 second. Couple more for you. Here we go. Thank you for the question, man. Boom. We start off with this one. This is Dogs of God, Columbus, the Inquisition, and the Defeat of the Moors. James Reston Jr. This is coming from the Christian perspective about the Moors. So, from the ops, so the enemy perspective. And while I got it open, let me just read it real quick. This is the prologue, just so you understand. It has been suggested that the three most important years in American history are 1492, 1776, and 1865. When we just was talking about 1779 and 1865 in the Constitution. Of these, 1492 goes far beyond American history. It is pivotal as well in Spanish history, in Jewish and Arab history, in world and church history. Indeed, it is difficult to imagine another single year in the past millennium when so many significant strands of history came together and so changed the world in one swoop. The completion of the 500-year movement to conquer the Moors. The end of the 800-year reign of the glorious culture of Islamic Spain and the consolidation of the modern Spanish state, the sinister explosion of the Spanish Inquisition. Talks about the Moors, the 500-year conquest. That's from the Christian perspective. The Golden Age of the Moor by Ivan van Sertima. Amazing information in here, different writings about the Moors from various authors, Jose V. Pimenta Bay. Page 184. Moorish has even become a synonym for an Arab or Berber, as well as a general term for any and all Muslims of the Middle Ages. Great information in there. And on that note, what you just heard has become a synonym for Arab and Berber. The Muqaddimah, I gotta figure out how to pronounce this, but this is Introduction to History, the Classic Islamic History of the Word by Ibn Khaldun. Important book. The Story of the Moors in Spain, Stanley Lane Poole. Moorish Spain, Richard Fletcher. The 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof by J. Rogers. It has some information in here about Moors. Let's see if I can flip and find one for you real quick. Nah. Well, it has some good information. It has amazing information, but it does mention Moors in here specifically as well. Here we go. The Rock of Gibraltar, the symbol of stability, is named after a quote-unquote Negro ex-slave. It is the corruption of Jabal Tariq, or the mountain of Tariq. Tariq, who was a Moor, captured the rock, which was then called the Caliph, in 711 AD. Later, he conquered southern Spain. Tariq's countrymen thereafter ruled Spain for 700 years. In Jay-Z's song, How Could You Fall? In Kanye's song, Diamonds, Jay-Z on the remix, How Could You Fall to Get a Rock of Gibraltar? I had to get off the boat so I could walk on water. From Babylon to Timbuktu by a history of ancient black races, including the Black Hebrews, by Rudolph R. Windsor. Amazing book, and this one has a whole chapter, a whole section, the Moorish Empire, page 109. So it got a whole section there on the Moorish Empire. Yeah, so Patah, Right Knowledge, those would be some books I'd recommend. Now, getting back to the Divine Constitution real quick, I wanted to go over... I see one more question. Let me get to the question real quick. Makes sense, but are there any original DC Divine Constitution and bylaws that can be verified to see what the prophet said? T Session L, that's a good question. In terms of verification, I think as Moorish Americans, we need to develop a better system of documenting our history and our records, and we need to develop a chain of validation or verification of some sort, so that we understand, what is true and accurate and right and exact, and what is hearsay or rumored. I think that's important. Actually, bylaws, now that you mentioned it, Quran questions for Moorish Americans. My apologies. Before I get back to Act 1 of the Divine Constitution, this is the Quran questions for Moorish Americans. It is a question and answer booklet, really straightforward. But at the end of it, it has additional laws for the Moorish Americans by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And so I wanted to read these as well, because these are important. And they'll tie into Act 1. Yeah. So of the additional laws, this is Act 1 of the additional laws for the Moorish Americans. Grand sheikhs and governors and heads of all temples, all businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Before acting upon by any members, let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the members to sacrifice finance, etc., that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his office under heavy restriction, etc., by the Prophet or the Grand Sheikh. Act 2 of the additional laws. All members are to attend their adept meetings and their public meetings promptly. If a member is found standing around on their meeting period, they shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second, he will be fined $1, which will go on into your emergency fund. If a member is working, his monthly dues must be paid, and if he has money in the bank, he must subscribe for as much as he is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. Act 3 of the additional laws. It is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he is able or she is able, in finance, to aid me in saving the nation. Saving the nation. And if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4 of the additional laws. All members, while making public speech, must not use any assertion against the American flag or speak radical against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'll read that act one more time. All members, while making a public speech, must not use any assertion against the American flag or speak radical against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5 of the additional laws. All members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school, and their teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire. And let every member exercise his 5 senses who is able to do so, because out from your Sunday school comes the guiders of the nation. Act 6 of the additional laws. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and partial, this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. And this is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7 of the additional laws. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become part and partial of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessity of the Moorish Science Temple, and then you are entitled the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother, be industrious, and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet Noble Drew Ali through the guidance of his father God, Allah. We're gonna get back to the divine constitution in Act 1. Yeah, we're gonna get back to that one, then we're gonna come make a reference in a second. But in Act 1 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, it says the Grand Sheik and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Grand Sheik and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America. When I was thinking about this last night, and I thought about it before, is Act 1 saying that the Grand Sheik and the chairman are one and the same? That's the same, the same person? I said, well, why would it say the Grand Sheik and the chairman? So if it's different, well, I said, well, let me look up what does chairman mean. Before I get to thinking I know everything, let's see what chairman means. And chairman in law, in the law dictionary, going back to Black's Law, the chairman is a name given to the presiding officer of an assembly, public meeting, convention, deliberative, or legislative body, board of directors, committee, etc. A presiding officer. Presiding officer. Let's look in the dictionary and see if it got... Is it this one, I think? Let's just double check. Just double check here. Yes. Chairman. Or chairperson, you want to get the neutral situation, but chairman, because that's what it's saying in the text. Anyways. Chairman, a person, especially a man, designated to preside over a meeting. Then right below it, it says the permanent or long-term president. The chairman is the permanent or long-term president of a committee, company, or other organization. The Moorish Science Temple of America is an organization. So the chairman would be the president of the organization. Then I said, okay, that makes sense. Because in another class, I was breaking down the structure in terms of government and the three branches, executive, judicial, and legislative. Let me look it up, Mitch. You just told me. Boom. Drop that in there for you. When we're looking at the government for the United States of America, it has three branches. The legislative makes laws, the executive carries out laws, judicial interprets the laws. I said, okay. It says, going back to the Divine Constitution, the Grand Sheik and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body. Okay. So when I was thinking about, well, how can a president make a law? Well, president, like the presidents, they have executive orders, which is essentially making a law. I said, oh, okay. But with our text, and I said, let me go to our text. What does our text say? And if you go to chapter 47 of the Quran, it says, line 12, these holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples. Here we go, line 14. Every subordinate temple of the grand major temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the holy prophet in the grand temple. So in our holy book, it says that subordinate temples can create laws, create our own laws and customs, verified, backed up by the divine constitution. That is where I think why it says the Grand Sheik and the chairman. The chairman is the president of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Yes, has that power. But Grand Sheiks in subordinate temples has the power to make law. Line 14, chapter 47. Every subordinate temple can create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the holy prophet in the Grand Temple. And I was thinking about that. Similarly, the United States of America has the Constitution. But then the states, which are subject to the Constitution for the United States of America, but the states have their own constitution and laws as well that are in conjunction with the federal or the Constitution for the United States of America. Does that make sense? So subordinate temples, they can create and make laws that are in conjunction with the divine constitution and bylaws. It can't supersede the divine constitution, but it can create laws in conjunction with. Does that make sense? And that's where the Grand Sheik and the chairman, because the chairman is presiding over everything. But it also says, with the assistance of the prophet and the grand body. That's key, man. That's key, because the grand body, if you know from the Moorish literature, the grand body is comprised of the executive rulers, the chief rulers, and the governor. And also, like with the Congress has the Senate. I was going over this in my head today. The Congress for the United States of America, the Congress has the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate, which has two people for the Senate, 2 senators for each state, yeah. And then the House of Representatives is depending on the people of the state. And I was thinking, okay, well, in that same sense, we have our own Congress, if you will, the grand body. And the grand body has the 2 sides of it, the chief rulers and the governors. You have the governors of each state, but then you also have the Grand Sheiks, or the chief rulers for each state, the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives vary depending upon the state. If you got a whole lot of temples in your state, then you got a lot of representatives for that state. Does that make sense? I hope it's making sense. But this is from my understanding when I'm understanding and when I'm studying this from a law perspective, not from belief or just religion, from a law perspective, because this is a constitution, right? It's a constitution. It's a way that it's supposed to be carried out. Oh, well, Rami, what about the judicial side? What about the judicial side, Rami? You're right. Interprets the laws, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. Who would interpret the laws for us? Who would... Could it be the Supreme Grand Council? Well, let's just see. Let's just see. The Supreme Grand Council will be the sole judge of what constitutes conduct injurious to the order, peace, interests, or welfare of the organization, or at variance with its constitution and bylaws, and also the rules and the regulations, and shall be the sole judge The Supreme Grand Council will be the sole judge, judicial judge, judicial judge. Okay, are we following? So the Supreme Grand Council is our judicial branch. They are the ones that interpret the laws. We always talking about court, right? Where's our Moorish court at? If someone breaks the law for us, what court do we go? Where do we get justice at for Moors, for Moorish Americans? You let me know. It's not supposed to be the court system, right? So what is the system we use? Who do we go to? Surely you can't believe that Noble Drew Ali didn't set it up for us. Surely you can't believe that. No. It was something set up, and it's the Supreme Grand Council. And then when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, And that's why it also mentions, let me see if I can find it real quick. Let me see if I can find it real quick for you. Oh, man. I can't find it right at the moment. But there was a reference to just a council. Because I'm thinking Supreme Grand Council is the Supreme Court. That's the top of the top court. But we also should have a council for the lower courts, right? Or the state courts. It makes sense. It's a government, it's an order, it's a structure to it all. And that's why we have to study. We have to follow what Noble Drew Ali was teaching. That's why this Quran is important, because it's not just a quote-unquote religious book. It in here is speaking about laws. So we have to understand that we need to use this for laws. And, just on a side note, because I was looking up some things and researching, do you know that the state of Israel does not have a constitution? Did you know that? Just thought I'd mention that to you. It's really interesting to be as powerful as they are, and they don't have an official constitution, and yet they're operating. And also, another side note, in reference to religious governance, if you look into the Vatican City, they have something called the Holy See. Look into that, the Holy See, SEE. Just look into that and see what you can find in terms of research. It's very interesting. Yeah, the drop a ball. Rashawn Bay, Supreme Grand Council will be responsible for that. It's an order that we must follow, but there isn't any in place. There isn't any order in place. We have a lot of disorder, dysfunction, disarray, disorganized. We disobeying. Oh, man. And, just summing it up, man, we have to get back on track. We have to follow the law. It says, line 13 of the Quran, these laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples. The laws is to be preserved by the members of all the temples. And then, where else did it say that? The law. Act 3. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government. Because by being a Moorish American, you're a part and partial of the government and must live the life accordingly. That we must preserve the laws and obey the laws. We got to preserve and obey the laws. It's just a fact. You know what I mean? And this is what comes This is the responsibility that comes with being Moorish American. We have principles that we have to live by. It requires discipline. It requires obedience. You can't say you can do whatever you want because I'm indigenous, and yes, you are indigenous. We are indigenous. Yes, this is true. We are our own nation. But even as our own nation, we have to govern ourselves, control, regulate ourselves. Means following laws. You can't just do whatever you want. That's anarchy. We ain't about that. Patah right knowledge. What laws? The divine constitution. The divine constitution and bylaws. The additional laws for Moorish Americans. The general laws Noble Drali spoke about. You know, start with those. That in itself is very important. You know, and then also, and that's the thing, we have to obey our laws, our divine constitution, and obey the laws of the government under which we live. We got that extra responsibility because it's not just about our earthly salvation. That's why it's a divine constitution. And when I was reading this and I was really thinking about this, if you look at the Constitution, this can be applied wherever you are. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, whatever that said government is, but to obey. It's not in conflict. It's not, it's not opposing, or it is none of our divine constitution laws are in any way infringing on the Constitution or the laws of any other said government. That's the what? Noble Drali was something different, man. So if all the laws, I'll get to your question, Noble. I kill. So if all the temples aren't obeying the prophet, then what is really going on? Sean Bay. I mean, Noble Drali said if we don't obey, if we don't follow the situation, the worst is yet to come. We are suffering through the worst right now. All the stuff that we played with, the disharmony, all of the murders, all of the illnesses, the poverty, all of that is because we not following the law. And what's more important is not just understanding, or not, I'm going to say it more important, but we also have to understand that yes, we are following the laws, and it's on us to get right. It's not no outside nation or group of people that's gonna come enforce our laws on us, for us, to get us right. We gotta get ourselves right. That's the idea of governing ourselves. That's the idea of being our own nation. We can't wait and look on other people to hold ourselves accountable. We have to look ourselves in the mirror. We have to have these tough conversations, and we have to hold our leaders, the people that's been in these positions, and ourselves as members accountable. And let me just get to that real quick before I close out. Why am I saying that? Because as members in the additional laws, it says that it is the divine duty of every good member, if he is able, to aid in saving the nation. With finance, and then subscribe as much as he is able in Act 2 to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. And then one more in Act 5, that all members must promptly attend the meetings and send their children to Sunday school. So we have a Sunday school that we are supposed to be sending our children to, right? That's providing opportunity and employment for our people in terms of teaching, in terms of services for school, et cetera, but also provide finance to the uplifting fund. But deeper than that, I'm not just saying we're supposed to be giving money. What I'm saying, though, is that we're supposed to have a treasury in place. We're supposed to have structure. We're supposed to have accounting. We're supposed to have people that we can pay, give our finance to for our nation. And it's all supposed to be documented and recorded according to law. And if we're not holding ourselves accountable to this, we are just as much at fault as the leaders. We can't just look towards the leaders and say, you're the only ones at fault. It's all of us. So we got to get right. You know what I mean? But let me close out with answering the question, Noble Akil. Get on Cujo's live. Y'all are talking about the same thing. Settle your differences as men. I'll be very honest and direct with you. We aren't talking about the same thing. And the differences is not between Cujo and I. Cujo has a personal problem. He has something going on within himself. That's why I keep asking him humbly, you need to get right with yourself. Go to Allah. Humble yourself. Take accountability for yourself and your actions. Because we all going to get judged for our actions. Ain't nobody exempt. And when that time comes, you can't say, oh, but, nah, what did you do? What I am doing is focusing on what Noble Drew Ali taught. And it's unfortunate that with Cujo and some other people, that when it comes to accountability, they are not willing or able to handle that. I can't force anybody to be accountable. I can control what I can control. And what I'm doing is making sure I teach, Moorish Americans teach our people what Noble Drew Ali taught. Let's focus on that. But I appreciate your question. And just to be clear, I still don't have, any hate for Cujo. Said a lot of disrespectful things to me publicly and not publicly. And it's all good. It's still love, because we are supposed to love instead of hate. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you people for listening, not just guys. Again, study Noble Drew Ali, study the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, the Quran Questions for Moorish Americans, study the Quran Circle 7, study the Moorish literature, and look at this information with an open mind. Look at it from a law perspective. Don't just go into this believing, oh, this is just some religion believing thing. Because this is to help make us better citizens, to help free us from economic slavery. So it's much bigger than just a spiritual or divine or a religious sort of movement. So understand that. All right, appreciate it. Yeah, man, just study the information. That's what's really important, and why I focus on going to Noble Drew Ali is because he truly is a divine prophet. And if you study his information and the teachings that he brought first, and then you look at, what anyone is saying, any Moorish leader, teacher, grand sheikh, etc., you can have a better understanding of what is right and exact, and what may have some mistakes in it. And we just need to get ourselves back on the right track. That's all. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We are all striving, to get to that place of perfection. We're all striving to be the best Muslims, best Moorish Americans that we can be. Um, but we're not perfect. We ain't there yet. So, um, man, keep improving. And most importantly, stand on the 5 principles: love, true peace, freedom, and justice. But especially, you got to stand on and move with love. That's really the key. If you don't got the love in it, man, the rest of it is not going to click. It's not going to connect. Um, and we're not going to be able to uplift ourselves. Um, no, I don't have any secondhand books on sale. But you should go if you have any half price bookstores near you. Check those out. I don't know if you got flea markets your way, libraries. See if they have book sales, Craigslist. You know what I mean? But yeah. Anyways, I gotta go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Keep shining. Keep moving with love, because love is the key. Love is the way. Peace.